Hey guys, the Frostfall Christmas event is coming up very soon. I think we're about 3 days away now from it landing this Friday, and we have some more intros for the new characters being introduced. Don't know why they've included Cetran. We've already seen him, we've already discussed him, so I'll just go over the intro we have for Celine and for Gwendolyn. We've already gone over the cinematic trailer in a previous video, so we'll just go over these two today and see what we can learn. We also do have the actual information for Gwendolyn's skills. I don't believe we have them for Celine just yet, so I'll just have to speculate on what we see here. So let's get started. Let's have a look at what Celine can do. We do know that Celine is a fighter of the North faction. We know that Gwendolyn is a healer of the North faction. Gwendolyn focuses on shields. I was wrong. My first guess was that she had some kind of AoE revive mechanic. From looking at her skills, it doesn't seem to be the case. So let's start with Celine and see what she's about. Okay, so we're loading into their little thing. So you can get Celine by shard summoning for nearly 2 week period, so make sure to save resources for that. It's probably going to be very hard again. Azhor was quite hard for a lot of people, so make sure that if you do want to get Celine, we'll see how good she is in a second. If you do want to get Celine, be prepared to fight for it. You're probably going to need to win a bunch of Oracle's trials, as with Azhor, so be ready. I'm not sure exactly how it works. It seems like the groupings for Oracle's trials are random. Fingers crossed. Alright, let's have a look. So first up, her talent, throbbing wound, marking, and massive damage to enemies. So to precurse my start, what I'm really predominantly looking for is Guild Boss. That's kind of where all the end game is at the moment, and marking to me sounds pretty good. And throbbing wound sounds like a bleed effect, which would be great with someone like Salazar, and it would be great with the artifact to increase damage against bleeding targets by 20%. So let's see. She attacks them, and it seems like there's some kind of... It's very hard to see from that tiny, like, 1 second clip. Yeah, I don't know, it's hard. There seems to be a second instance of damage that's not quite 100% bonus damage, but close. Maybe 180% damage it deals. And now we are moving on to her ultimate, Swish. Triple hit with massive damage. And it seems to have at least 2 tile range on it. Can't tell if it's much more than that. So her ultimate seems to hit 3 times. The third hit does more damage from the looks of it. 2 are the same, and then the third hit, and it's not a critical, there's no icon. So the first 2 hits are 5.4k, and the third hit is 7.2. The normal hits are about 2k, so a complete guess on the modifiers. The first 2 hits seem to be like 150%-ish bonus damage, and then the third hit seems to be over 200% bonus damage. So it seems to be a nuke on a cooldown. It's an automatically activated ultimate, you can see from the purple bar. So this will just trigger when it's off. So we can see that it regenerates quite quickly, the purple bar, so I'm guessing she'll just mow through people quite quickly, I think. Her ultimate coming up quite quickly. Okay, passive lunge. AoE damage and marking. Okay, so something to note here. You can see that she hits the person adjacent to her as well. So it's hard to tell what cone this hits. It could be like a 4x3 cone like Zilla2 and Arrogance have. I'm not sure if that's the case, but we can assume that she does hit the tiles next to her as well. It could be like a T-shape, but I'm inclined to think it's a 3x4, so these 3 tiles and then out 4. I think that's what they'll probably do, but we don't know. It's hard to say for now, but it seems to be the case. Marking is what I'm interested in. You can see that there's a bonus damage applied here. I think that's from her talent, the damage we saw earlier. And passive starting riposte, damage to all marked enemies when putting a mark on an enemy. Okay, so if she marks a new enemy, all the existing marks take damage. So everyone she's already marked takes damage as well. So she has some potential to do AoE damage. You can see that she's dealing magic damage as her attack type from the purple damage numbers. It's interesting. She's a magic damage dealing fighter who has some reach potential. She applies some damage and she applies mark. Let's see if we can find out exactly what the mark effect is. Can't see much more from that. From how it looks, she looks quite strong. She looks to have quite a high damage output. I don't know how strong it will be. The modifier seems quite high. Her triple hit seems to be quite high damage. I don't think the modifiers will be as high as someone like Salazar. At least it didn't look it from the numbers we saw. Obviously, these are skilled up, so this is like another 80% bonus damage on this. So maybe she'll get close to a Salazar nuke. Maybe hers will be up more often. I think she certainly has potential to deal good damage. Let me just quickly try to find someone with a mark effect, because I don't have one myself, and I want to see how it actually works. Okay, well, I couldn't find out what mark actually is. I assumed it was an existing debuff. I had a look at Ignatius, but his is a separate thing. It's focus fire. So perhaps this is just a new mechanic they're introducing, or maybe there's just someone I'm missing out on. Do let me know if I'm missing that. Yeah, she seems good. She seems good. It's really hard to know without seeing her modifiers. It's really good that she has the ability to hit tiles in front of her. You can see from her default attack that she's not hitting the one above her, so she by default, she doesn't have cleave, she doesn't hit the tiles next to her, she probably doesn't have longer than a single tile range in her default attacks. Her ultimate seems strong, the triple hit. You would hope the modifier would be very high to justify her. The marking, I am very interested. The AoE damage on her passive lunge seems cool. This will likely trigger on X amount of hits. So I think there's a lot of potential for this to be quite strong if you build her with attack speed, especially if you give her, assuming it is on X amount of hits and not on crits or certain timers or whatever. If it's based on hits, then you definitely want to give her the legendary artifact that gives you a chance to make another attack. I think it's 10% up to 15% at max level. I think that would be good on her for her lunge passive. The starting riposte is quite good as well based on all marked enemies, but I don't know what mark is. I can't find it. I'm really curious. Anyway, she seems quite strong. It will really, in my opinion, depend on what exactly mark is. It will depend on what modifier Swish has and on how her lunge is applied. If it is on hits, how many hits? If it's on seconds, how many seconds on the cooldown? So yeah, I think she has a lot of potential to be very strong, but we just need to see the modifiers to know how good she will be. She is a fusion hero, so a lot of people will be able to get her. A lot of people will miss her. Be warned, if you are playing quite casually, if this is anywhere near the difficulty of the Azure event, a lot of you will not be able to get her. If you take it too easy, you need to make sure you get as much shards early on as you can. The Azure event, it was quite tricky because you needed to succeed in some of the summoning events. And for those, you really needed over 100 summons available, probably closer to 150 summons to be able to get some of the shards from that. So be prepared, it might be quite tricky to fuse. One thing I am very happy about with Celine, she is the North faction. She is a fighter that isn't Nightmare. That is a nice breath of fresh air. There are so many fighters that are Nightmare faction, and I'm a big Nightmare faction fan, but it would be great to build some other teams out. Now all I would like from the developers is please give us some more lords. Don't just make them fusion and hide them away. Give us some lords. Just make them summonable more likely. Something's funny going on there, but it would be cool if we could build the North team more. So I'm hoping they'll do something soon to help out with that. But so far, Celine seems quite strong. I think she probably has very good damage output, and it's great to have a high damage dealer, or it seems like a high damage dealer for a faction that is not the Infernal and is not Nightmare. So I think Celine will be quite cool for that. I would definitely try and get her. And yeah, she seems very promising from that. So we'll move on to Gwendolyn now. So Gwendolyn, something to note, she is a limited hero. She will only be available from December the 23rd to the 28th. So that'll be from this Friday through to next Wednesday for some reason. So yeah, make sure if you do want to get hold of her, that is your time to summon. Her drop rate will be increased by 10 times, but I believe all heroes will be increased by 2 times during this event. So it's quite a nice summoning event we have. And we'll have a look at it. I have a picture from the Discord that has her actual, let me just pause this, a picture that has her actual skills, and it shows some of the modifiers. So I will probably throw that on the screen somewhere when we're looking at this video. Perhaps after we've had a quick look, I'll just go over that next rather than this. It gives us the actual details. So we'll look at the skills first and then we'll discuss them afterwards. So the basic attack, this applies a shield equal to 20% of her max HP. I keep forgetting these don't loop, and I'm just sitting there as they're all flying past. So the basic attack, you can see it's a single shield for 20% of her max HP. And we can see the next one up is her ultimate, strong shield for multiple allies. And the way this one works, Icy Shell, her ultimate, she grants a shield to one ally in particular, and it can absorb up to 90% of her max HP. So basically it's a shield the size of 90% of her max HP, and then each of the surrounding allies, so I'm guessing it's adjacent allies to that hero, gain a shield of half that strength, so 45% of her max HP, and these shields last for 10 seconds. So there we can see that. And then passive, the first passive, there are 2. Passive Shield of Hope, healing allies after shield expires. This heals them for 10% of their max HP. So you can see there, Salazar got healed for 10% of his max HP. And last, there is the passive Frigid Flurry. AoE damage and crowd control to enemies after shields expire. So when the shield expires, you have not only the person who the shield expires on gets 10% of their max HP back, you also have the Frigid Flurry passive, dealing AoE damage and crowd controlling. This deals AoE damage equal to 15% of her max HP to up to 2 enemy targets and freezes them for 1 second. So you can see these guys take damage based on her max HP, and they are frozen for 1 second. So yeah, there we have her skills. Now I will throw up a picture so we can talk about them in a bit more detail, seeing the modifiers. I kind of quickly went over them there, so let's do that. Cool, so you can see I have thrown the image up in the background behind me, and we'll discuss this now. So I can't put my mouse over it, unfortunately, because of the way it's done. But yeah, so we can see Gwendolyn is a healer. She's not a lord, unfortunately. She is of the North faction. Her talent means that when allies are shielded... Okay, sorry, the English is not great here. When allies are shielded of all types, the shield can absorb 10% extra damage. I think that means any shields placed on allies are 10% bigger or 10% stronger. So I believe if you have a Vortex or King Haas or other North faction members who love throwing shields around, they'll be 10% better. This seems to be just a general benefit for having her down. And when allies with HP below 50% are shielded by this hero, by Gwendolyn, the shield has 20% extra. So the shield is 20% larger, stronger, whatever you want to say. And the attack range for her is basically the same as Vortex. You can see she seems to be a fairly improved Vortex. However, she doesn't heal, which is my biggest issue, but we'll get into that later. So in the top-down order, it is the auto attack, the ultimate, the first passive, and the second passive. So the first one is the auto attack. Grants a shield to one ally in range, which can absorb damage equal to 20% of Gwendolyn's max HP. That's quite good. She's got a long range to attack from. If you stack health on her, she'll be able to place massive shields. Her ultimate grants a shield to one ally in range, which can absorb damage equal to 90% of her max HP. That's a lot of shield. And each of the surrounding allies gain shield equal to half of that for 10 seconds. When the shields on all allies are gone, the target will restore 10% of the max HP. So there is some healing there, but that's the only healing she has in her kit. We don't know if there's any awakening bonuses, but she's a limited summon hero, so if you really want her awakening bonuses, you better pull out your card and start swiping, because you are not getting her after this event. There's some healing there. It's not a lot of healing. I would feel uncomfortable having her as my sole healer. She is not going to work in the guild boss. She does not have enough sustain. Her second passive, when shields end, deals damage equal to 15% of her max HP to up to 2 enemies and freezes them for 1 second. So that's her toolkit. She can throw shields out, lots of different shields, and when they expire, she not only heals them, she not only damages the people around, but she also freezes them. So there's a load of benefits to having her down for shields. The shields seem very strong. My issue with her is the max HP restore is just too low. Likely with skill ups, that will probably go to 15% perhaps. But it's just not enough in my opinion. It's not a great heal to give people. Not when you can just chuck down a healer that can just blat people out with heals. The benefit really comes from being able to keep someone tanky who normally isn't tanky. Existing content, I don't really know anything where that's a problem. Perhaps Gear Raid 2. She would be very good for that, to make sure that people aren't dying to those effects. But it really depends how her AI works, how she prioritizes her shields, how people can survive, how much health you can stack on her. She's a very niche unit, but quite interesting. I'm not sure how she'll work, how she'll play, but I think she has potential. It just might be kind of tricky to find exactly where it is. She's quite niche. The benefit, I think, is 15% of her max HP to up to 2 targets and freezing them for 1 second. If that even goes up to 20% with skill ups, it's quite a lot of damage. She could potentially have a load of health. If you're building her a pure HP, she should be able to reach quite a lot of health, and I would expect that she could actually do a lot of damage. Now, if you imagine you use her ultimate and you cast it on one person and then you end up casting it on a whole bunch of different groups of people at the same time, now when all those shields expire, everyone gets healed, everything gets frozen, and you're dealing quite a lot of damage to the nearby enemy. So she would actually have a way of dealing damage. So yeah, I don't know. I don't see her being too useful, if I'm being honest. It doesn't seem that great to me. It's just not meaty enough. It's just a bunch of shields, but then there's not the healing to back it up. She feels like a backup healer. But most content you kind of push towards not having a secondary healer. I think she would be great in Gear Raid 2. I think she could be very good in Artifact Raid as well. I think she would be fantastic in Tide. I think for Tide she would be very, very potent. But for the tricky content like the Guild Boss, I don't think she has a place. I would be very interested to see what her Awakening 1 is, because that's potentially attainable for some people. I would be interested to see how her skill ups fall. But generally, I'm not super impressed with Gwendolyn's toolkit. It just doesn't do enough. I can't imagine recommending her as a primary healer almost anywhere. And if she's not the primary healer, you have to justify taking her over a DPS of some kind. However, that being said, there might be new content in future where you really need a secondary healer, and if we do get more challenging content in future where there is a higher damage output, which I really hope the developers do, at the moment the game is just a complete DPS fest. There is no real reason to build defenders, there's not much reason to build more than one really good healer, perhaps two. So maybe for future content she could be incredible, because the variety of having such powerful shields would be great. If King Haas starts to become more attainable, I swear to God the guy is not in a summon pool. I'm sure he is, but man does it not feel like it. But King Haas has some really good faction blessings as the Legendary Lord. He can increase the defense of shielded allies by 20%, He can chuck out shields based on stuff. Like there's some very strong faction benefits there. But yeah, that's Gwendolyn. That's her skills, her talent. That's the range of everything. My overall thoughts on Gwendolyn and Celine. I think Celine looks stronger to me. Definitely go for Celine. Definitely prepare to fight for it. You're going to need to win the Oracle's Trials to have a solid chance, most likely. And I think she'll be quite useful for a lot of people. I think she probably will have a place in some of starting guild boss teams. Probably not the longer ones, as you will want a faction built around your teams and guild boss when you're heading for Nightmare 3 and preparing for Nightmare 4. The North faction just isn't ideal for that at the moment. But I think she seems quite strong. I think she'll be viable in a lot of content. As for Gwendolyn, I'm not certain at the moment that she's too useful. I think she has potential to be very useful depending on what the future content is, so I will definitely be pulling for her regardless, just because one, it's nice to have new stuff, but two, I think in future she could be very, very useful. Those are the new heroes that have come out. There's no more notices on those two. Cetram we've already seen. He's already out on the test server 49001 as well as a bunch of other servers. If this update comes in full and you guys get Cetram on the other non-test servers, then Cetram is a good hero to get. He is of the Infernal faction, which is the best damage dealing faction for Guild Boss, and he is really good at dealing damage on Guild Boss, so he's a great one to pull for as well. I hope I get him. So I'm mainly interested in Celine. I would like to get Cetram, but he's not particularly new. And Gwendolyn I'm interested in just because she has utility, and she is only the second legendary healer in the game. But yeah, it's great that they're building out the North faction. It's cool to see more heroes in different factions. So fingers crossed they're good, and I will see you in the next one. Hopefully I get them soon, and if I do, I'll do a review kind of covering my thoughts on them and how to build them and where to use them. So yeah, thank you guys, have a nice one, take care, and bye bye.